The steady hum of morning traffic drifted through the narrow streets of downtown Portland. A cool autumn breeze carried the scent of roasted coffee and wet leaves as Clara Hayes pulled her wool coat tighter and stepped into Willow and Steam Cafe, a cozy corner spot known for its quirky chairs, art-covered walls, and dangerously good cinnamon muffins. She wasn't supposed to be here. Not really. Her sister had begged her to go. "Just one date, Clara," she'd said. "He's normal. You could use normal." Normal. The word felt both safe and exhausting. Clara was 32, a literature professor at Portland State who spent more time buried in novels than with actual people. After a rough breakup 2 years earlier, she'd sworn off dating apps, romantic promises, and men who quoted poetry they didn't understand. Yet somehow, she found herself here, sitting by the window, watching raindrops race down the glass, and checking her phone for the third time. He was late. Of course he was. She was mentally rehearsing her "sorry, I have to go" speech when the door opened and a man stepped in. He wasn't what she expected. He wore a faded gray jacket, frayed at the cuffs, and scuffed leather shoes that had clearly seen years of rain. His dark hair was slightly messy, and he carried a paper bag and a beat-up notebook. But when his eyes found hers, his smile was warm and unforced, like sunlight sneaking through clouds. "Clara?" he asked, voice deep and calm. "Yes, you must be." "Eli," he said quickly, sliding into the chair across from her. "Sorry I'm late. The bus was running behind." A man who took the bus. That was unexpected. Refreshing, even. They ordered. She went with chamomile tea. He ordered black coffee, no sugar, no cream. "Bitterness builds character," he said, half grinning. She smiled. That's one way to put it. Conversation flowed more easily than she'd imagined. Eli told her about mentoring kids through a local literacy program, about teaching them to find their voice through stories. He spoke softly, without ego. When she asked what he did for work, he simply said, "I manage community resources." Nothing exciting. There was something about the way he said it, humble, careful, as if he didn't want attention. Outside, a golden retriever wandered past the cafe window, shaking rain from its fur. Without a word, Eli tore off a piece of his muffin, stepped outside, and offered it to the dog. The animal wagged its tail, and Eli laughed, patting its head before returning to his seat. "He's out there every morning," he said. "Guess we all need a little kindness." Clara found herself smiling. He wasn't like other men she'd met. No flashy talk, no arrogance, just quiet sincerity. When the date ended, Eli stood and gave her a small, genuine smile. "Thanks for not running away 5 minutes in." She laughed softly. "Thanks for showing up." He walked her to her car but didn't ask for another date. He just said, "I hope your day treats you kindly." And somehow, those words stayed with her long after she drove away. A week passed before Clara heard from him again. It was a rainy Thursday evening when her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Hey, it's Eli. I found a coffee shop that makes your chamomile tea better than Willow and Steam. Want to test that theory?" She smiled without realizing it. It wasn't a grand gesture, just simple, thoughtful. Exactly like him. 2 days later, they met at Maple and Vine, a small cafe tucked between an art gallery and a bookstore. It was quieter than most places downtown, the kind of spot where time slowed down. Eli was already there, sitting at a corner table, reading something handwritten in his old notebook. When he saw her, he closed it immediately. "Hey," he said, standing to greet her. "You look happy." "Guess I am," she admitted. "You found a place that serves real chamomile?" "I told the owner it was a mission of mercy," he said with a grin. She took it seriously. They sat for hours. The conversation drifted from light to deep, childhood memories, favorite authors, the strange comfort of rainy days. Clara learned Eli had grown up in Oregon, raised by his grandmother after his parents passed away. He'd never gone to college but talked about life like someone who'd read everything worth knowing. "You ever feel like people judge you by what you have instead of who you are?" he asked suddenly, his tone thoughtful. Clara tilted her head. "Every day. Academia runs on reputation. If you don't publish enough papers, you stop existing. Eli smiled faintly. That's not just academia. For a moment, she wondered what he really meant. But before she could ask, he changed the subject. Later, as they walked outside, the air smelled like fresh rain and wet concrete. Streetlights shimmered across puddles like scattered stars. Eli stopped beside a street vendor selling roses. He bought one. Not the perfect red bloom in front, but a smaller, slightly wilted one hiding in the back. Why that one? Clara asked, amused. Because it's been overlooked all day, he said simply. And sometimes, the ones no one notices end up lasting the longest. Clara didn't know how to respond. He handed her the rose, and the world seemed to pause for a heartbeat. When they reached her car, she hesitated. Eli, this has been really nice. He smiled gently. It's been real, Clara. That's better than nice. She opened her mouth to say something, maybe to ask when she'd see him again, but he was already walking away, hands tucked in his pockets, shoulders hunched against the drizzle. That night, as she placed the rose in a glass of water, she noticed something unusual. A small folded note, tucked just beneath the stem. It read, "Kindness is a habit, not a performance." Clara stared at it for a long time, her heart oddly full and unsettled all at once. Who exactly was Eli Harper? The following week, Clara couldn't stop thinking about Eli. She tried to push the thought aside. Grading papers, teaching classes, attending faculty meetings. But his words, his quiet smile, the folded note under the rose, it all lingered. By Saturday, she found herself back at Willow and Steam Cafe, the same spot where they'd first met. It was almost noon, and the usual hum of conversation filled the room. She ordered her tea and sat by the window, scrolling absent-mindedly through her phone, until she saw something that made her freeze. A photo. It was on the Portland Business Journal website. The headline read, "Eli Harper Foundation expands youth literacy program across Oregon." Clara blinked, her heart kicking hard in her chest. The photo was unmistakable. Eli. The same gentle smile, the same eyes. But in this picture, he wore a dark tailored suit and stood beside the governor, holding a plaque. She clicked on the article. Eli Harper, CEO of the Harper Group, continues to support underprivileged youth through the company's nonprofit branch. CEO? Harper Group? Clara set down her phone, her pulse racing. He'd told her he managed community resources. Technically, that wasn't a lie, but it was a carefully chosen truth. The door opened. She looked up instinctively, and there he was. Eli walked in, wearing his same old jacket and jeans, carrying that same beat-up notebook. But now she saw it differently. The quiet confidence, the unspoken restraint, the way people in the cafe glanced at him with recognition, yet he seemed completely unaware, or maybe deliberately unaware, of their stares. "Clara," he said, surprised but happy. "Didn't expect to see you here." She managed a small smile. "Me neither." They talked like always, softly, easily. But beneath every word, Clara felt the question burning on her tongue. She waited until their cups were empty before finally asking, "Eli, why didn't you tell me who you really are?" He paused, fingers still on his mug. The moment stretched between them, fragile as glass. "I didn't lie," he said quietly. "I just didn't lead with a title. Most people see the company before they see me." "Then why tell me anything at all?" she pressed. "Why pretend to be someone else?" He looked out the window, rain streaking the glass. "Because I wanted to know what it felt like to be treated like anyone else. Not someone to impress or fear. Just a man who takes the bus." Clara wanted to be angry, but she couldn't. There was no arrogance in his voice, only exhaustion. The kind that comes from being misunderstood too often. She sighed. "You could have trusted me." "I was trying to," he said softly. "But I guess I took the long way around." When he left, the bell above the cafe door chimed, and Clara sat there long after he was gone. His chair still warm, her tea long gone cold. For the first time, she wasn't sure if she missed the man he was, or the man he'd let her see. 3 weeks passed without a word. Clara told herself she was fine. She buried herself in work, rearranged her apartment, even took up yoga, something she'd sworn she'd never do. But every quiet night ended the same, with her staring at that single dried rose on her bookshelf, its petals faded but still somehow holding on. She missed him. Not the CEO from the article, not the man with money or a foundation. She missed the one who fed stray dogs, who tore muffins in half, who believed kindness mattered. One Friday afternoon, while driving home, she passed the city's community library. A banner fluttered outside. Youth Reading Initiative, sponsored by the Harper Foundation. Something in her chest tugged. Without thinking, she parked and walked in. Inside, the library buzzed with children. Some sat on beanbags reading picture books. Others clustered around volunteers helping them sound out words. And there, kneeling beside a young boy struggling to read Charlotte's Web, was Eli. No suit, no cameras, no entourage, just that same old gray jacket. He looked up, saw her, and froze. "Clara," he said softly, standing. "Didn't think you'd show up," she finished, her voice gentle. "Neither did I." They stood there for a moment, the noise of the library fading into the background. "I read about what you're doing here," she said. "It's incredible, Eli. You could have told me." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I wanted you to see me, not the version everyone expects. I've spent years hiding behind a company logo. With you, I didn't have to." Clara studied him. He looked tired, but peaceful, like a man who'd finally stopped pretending. "You know," she said, smiling faintly, "you're terrible at first impressions, but you're pretty great after that." He laughed quietly, the tension breaking. "I'll take that as progress." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then one of the kids tugged on Eli's sleeve. "Mr. Harper, are you coming back to help me?" Eli smiled at the boy. "Of course, buddy. Just a minute." Clara watched him kneel again, patient and kind, guiding the boy through each word. Something about the scene made her throat tighten. When he stood up again, he said, "I still don't have much time for fancy dinners or formal things, but I could really use some company on my coffee runs." She raised an eyebrow. "Are you asking me out, Mr. Harper?" "I'm asking you in," he said with a smile. "Into my real world." Clara hesitated only a second before nodding. "Okay, but I'm paying for the tea this time." He laughed, shaking his head. "We'll argue about that later." As they stepped outside, the evening sky over Portland glowed in soft amber hues. The rain had stopped, leaving the city fresh and new, as if forgiving. And when Eli reached out, not with grandeur but with quiet sincerity, Clara took his hand. Sometimes, love doesn't come with fireworks. Sometimes it just finds you, in an old jacket over coffee on a rainy day.